Good day and welcome to Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and today we're talking about narcissism. In particular, we're going to address the question of whether or not Donald Trump is a narcissist. Now, on February 13th, Dr. Lance Dodds, a retired psychiatrist who taught at Harvard Medical School, submitted a letter to the editor at the New York Times saying that, quote, Mr. Trump's speech and actions makes him incapable of serving safely as president. Now, I didn't mention narcissism, I'll get to that in a moment, but the letter was co-signed by 33 other mental health professionals. This is generating a lot of debate in the mental health community because the letter goes against a long-standing ethic to never comment on or diagnose a public figure. You're not supposed to make comments about someone who's an actor or an actress or a politician. It also goes against normal ethics around privacy because obviously you're divulging something that's private to that person potentially. That being said, a variety of medical and mental health professionals and dozens of non-professionals have made claims and or discussed whether or not Donald Trump is a narcissist publicly. You probably see hundreds of tweets daily on this issue. And outside of Twitter, there are many other examples, including TV. For example, in 2016, before the election, Don Lemon of CNN interviewed Dr. Drew, the famous doctor who's often on TV. But Dr. Drew was very carefully not to diagnose Mr. Trump. And he's very aware of this ethical issue about making such comments. So he very carefully, he made the interview interesting, and you can check on it down below. But he was just very careful not to out and out diagnose him. He did talk about a number of issues that go into the diagnosis. And let's go ahead and dive into those. Now, what exactly is narcissism? Well, let's keep in mind, there's a colloquial definition. This means the definition that you use in the street around your family and friends. And there's also a clinical or mental health definition. Now, colloquially, people use the term to refer to someone who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. We might call such a person arrogant. We might say he or she looks down on people. We might also call them a narcissist. However, most of the online and TV debate has centered on whether or not Mr. Trump does or would actually meet the true clinical definition of narcissism. Now, clinically, the proper diagnosis is called Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. It's one of the more than 10 so-called personality disorders. Another one you may have heard of is Obsessive-Compulsive Personality Disorder. Now, let's have a look at the mental health Bible known as the DSM-5. Narcissistic personality disorder is right there. It has a detailed list of 9 symptoms in which 5 or more must be present, but I would just summarize it this way, and it's summarized in the book this way. Narcissistic personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy that begins in early adulthood and is present in a variety of contexts. Let me talk through these again. Pervasive pattern of grandiosity. Pervasive means you got to be seeing it again and again and again. Need for admiration, that goes without saying. Lack of empathy, so you're going to be seeing them be uncaring, not being able to relate to other people's pain. And also, the definition said it has to begin in early adulthood, and it's present in a variety of contexts. What you're really talking about here is you're going to see it at home, you're going to see it at work, you see it at school, you see it in other contexts, you see it on your reality TV show. So you can judge for yourself if Mr. Trump meets that part of the definition, but there's more. Now, in addition to those sort of symptoms, and again, I said you have to meet 5 out of 9 on a list, it's very important, and we'll discuss this in a moment. The definition also says that the enduring pattern of behaviors has to result in significant distress or impairment to the person in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. Now, I agree with the ethical notion that one should not diagnose a public figure and discuss it publicly, but I'm going to make some comments for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm a psychology student, so I'm not subject to the APA ethical guidelines as of yet. Since I don't have a license, I can't lose a license. But that being said, since I intend to be a therapist someday in the future, I'm not going to comment directly on whether or not President Trump has narcissistic personality disorder or any other disorder. Now, back to Dr. Drew for a moment. He said in his interview, and I'll leave the link down below so you can check it out. It's on YouTube. Many leaders exhibit narcissistic symptoms. They're confident in themselves, they're very positive. If you've ever met any CEOs of startups, they can make wild, unbelievable, or even exaggerated statements. They can proclaim things to be true that they actually just wish were true, but maybe aren't quite yet. But one of the keys, as I mentioned, is that it must impact them significantly. So they can have all the symptoms that they want. But if they're still able to hold a job, get married, raise kids, basically go about their daily life without needing help from medical and psychological professionals, then they're probably not having significant impairment. So you can go ahead and play armchair psychologist. I've given you a lot of details you can work with. You can feel free to do your own diagnosis of President Trump. You can debate amongst yourselves as to whether or not his symptoms cause him significant impairment in his day-to-day life. And I hope all this information was useful. And so with that, I'll say thank you for watching Psych Sense, where we make sense of mental health. I'm Ken Mallon, your host, and I'll see you next time.